Hey y'all, I just wanted to briefly take a second to make a small disclaimer for this video. I say bad words, and this is like a huge spoiler for A Vision of Shadows, Warrior Cats, of course. And I bring up some spoilers for things that are not even remotely related to Warrior Cats at all, such as BoJack Horseman and Tuca and Birdie. Yeah, I know it's really, really out of place. And, but, I promise it ties into the topic. I promise that, I have good points relating to it. And then I also discuss things like abuse, cults, blood is mentioned heavily. And, I think that's all I really need to, mention for a disclaimer. Also, I had a good speed paint video thing prepared, but my video software fucking died. So, I had to resort to just using the normal IBIS thing, speed paint thing that it allows you to export. So, sorry that the video quality of, the speed paint and stuff is so shit, and that it's, surprisingly short. Yeah, my bad. Hopefully you guys understand. Enjoy my insane ramblings about fictional cat books meant for children. Needletail. Everyone loves Needletail, but why? What did she really do to deserve so much love and adoration from Warrior Cats fans? I see a lot of people talk positively about her and say she had a good redemption, but I can't help but disagree. I'm Shrimpteeth, and I'm here to tell you why Needletail is an abuser who had a horrible redemption, and that redemption sends a horrible message. Let's start from the first book. Needlepaw was just a rebellious little apprentice then. She was bold and would talk shit about anyone no matter their status. She joins Alderpaw and a bunch of other ThunderClan cats on a journey, and it's seen here that she is resourceful. She makes use of her situation and puts her warrior pride aside in order to figure out easy solutions to any conflict they're in. And that's all we can say about Needlepaw in the first book. The fucking starts in book 2 when we start to see through Violet Kit's perspective. Violet Kit is brought to Shadow Clan and Twig Kit is brought to Thunder Clan, but this isn't about Thunder Clan, so let's mainly focus on Violet Kit. Violet Kit has a hard time fitting in and is afraid that Shadow Clan thinks she doesn't belong, despite how hard she tried to fit in and be one of them. Keep this in mind for later. Needlepaw has been growing slightly close to Violet Kit and even took her out to meet her sister. However, the next time she takes Violet Kit out to meet her sister, she doesn't actually take her to meet Twig Kit. Needlepaw takes her to meet a bunch of rogues and lies to her to get her to come along. Once it's revealed this trip was to meet a bunch of strangers and not Twig Kit and Elderpaw, Violet Kit is anxiety-ridden and nobody takes notice. Rain, one of the rogues in questions, reveals that Needlepaw said Violet Kit isn't one of them, behind her back, making Violet Kit self-conscious immediately, and she feels a bit betrayed that Needlepaw would think she didn't fit in with the rest of the clan. This is an asshole move because Needlepaw is aware of Violet Kit's insecurities and actively encourages them by stating outright that she doesn't think Violet Kit is one of them. Later on, after Violet Kit gets in trouble as well as Needlepaw, the latter is bound to help the elders despite how much she doesn't want to. She begs Violet Kit to go talk to her crush for her and tell them she can't meet them tonight. She sends a baby into the forest alone with no one else looking after her, well aware of the dangers, but brushes it off in favor of Violet Kit doing as she asks. Violet Kit does it, and a bunch of cats she doesn't know groom her into staying the night with them. Now remember, kids, stranger danger. This was highly irresponsible and dangerous of Needlepaw. She sent a baby into the forest on her own to talk to cats she doesn't know. These cats are revealed to be dangerous later on, which makes it worse. Those cats walk her home and enter their camp, starting a fight between all the children and all the old people in Shadow Clan, even after the rogues leave. This earns Violet Kit the respect of all the teenagers in camp because, whoa, the little kid spoke to strangers we think are radical. Later on, Rain, the cat Needlepaw has a crush on, walks in and drops some prey into the Shadow Clan prey pile and asks to join Shadow Clan. Of course, they're rejected, so Rain just peacefully and respectfully leaves. However, the teenagers start a riot and decide collectively to leave the clan and join the kin. This includes Needlepaw. Violet Kit begs Needlepaw not to go, but Needlepaw just takes Violet Kit with her. She doesn't even give her a choice, she just makes Violet Kit come with her. Violet Kit isn't too upset because she's convinced that she isn't welcome in Shadow Clan anyway. Now, of course, this is influenced by lots of old people, but there are cats in Shadow Clan who would accept her. I place part of the blame on Needlepaw for stating that Violet Kit isn't one of them during her interactions with Rain. Continuing forward with a time skip, we follow Twigpaw's perspective this time. Yeah, Twig Kit is an apprentice now, so is Violet Kit, and Needlepaw is now Needletail. Twigpaw finds out about this whole thing about ThunderClan not looking for her mom, and she gets upset that Elderpaw suggests her mom might be dead and leaves to find Violetpaw. She does find Violetpaw, but she's cold and distant. Twigpaw asks Violetpaw to go searching for their mom with her, but she says it would be wrong of her to take off with her and leave the kin behind. Needletail shows up shortly after to butt into their business and tell Twigpaw to leave. During the interaction, Violetpaw is hesitant and sorrowful, but Needletail basically isolates Violetpaw from Twigpaw, forcing the two apart. I'll state it now. Needletail is forcing Violetpaw to come with her for whatever reason to join a cult just so she can date a random hot stranger she doesn't fully know. She isolates Violetpaw from anyone she doesn't like and neglects her wants and needs here. She also manipulates Violetpaw into being loyal to the kin. Yes, the kin are taking part in this and are also manipulating Needletail slightly, but Needletail is still part of their hive mind at this point. She is one of the kin and is forcing Violetpaw to be part of it too. Shortly after, Rain challenges Darktail for leadership of the kin and Needletail nurses Rain's wounds. Violetpaw grows upset at this and decides she wants to leave the kin. For the first time in her entire life, she makes her own decisions. With a heavy heart, she walks out on Needletail, temporarily saving her from any more abuse Needletail could possibly impose on her. She walks back to ShadowClan and they accept her back in after some banter and Tawny Pelt being the smartest cat in the room. That ends Needletail and Violetpaw's interactions for a little bit until some time later. For now, Violetpaw is spending time for herself and doing clan things, and also Twigpaw is held hostage so she gets to hang out with her sister. Violetpaw feels betrayed that Twigpaw rightfully wanted to leave ShadowClan and tries to talk to Needletail again. Needletail taunts, insults, and threatens her, and even after she calls Violetpaw a clan cat, tries to force her into the kin again, outright stating that she won't give Violetpaw a choice. Rain says Violetpaw is too soft to join the kin again and lets her off, and Violetpaw wastes no time getting out of there. Later on, ShadowClan is fighting again, and the kin show up. Darktail challenges Rowanstar, and Rowanstar gets his ass kicked, and then says anyone who wants to stay in ShadowClan will go to the gathering, and only his wife and son come with him. Violetpaw is about to join Rowanstar's group until Needletail guilt trips and manipulates her into staying. Now one could say, maybe Needletail genuinely cares about Violetpaw. And if she did, I wouldn't have made this video in the first place. What Violetpaw says is true, she does have friends and a mate, but for some reason Needletail decides she still wants Violetpaw around, and I'm sure I know why. Violetpaw doesn't often say no to Needletail because she looks up to her and idolizes her. Needletail knows this and wants Violetpaw around because she's easy to manipulate and she can get her to do what she wants. Yes, maybe Needletail has a change of heart later on, but we aren't there yet. This is still some big fun revolution gang type thing to her, and Violetpaw isn't a cat to her. Violetpaw is just there for Needletail to fall back on when she feels like talking to her. Sort of like a Muriel and Birdie type deal from Tuca and Birdie, where Muriel dragged Birdie along and even kissed her, but was really only hanging out with her because she and her best friend stopped talking for a bit. In Shattered Sky, she spends the majority of the book still being her normal self, still uncaring and encouraging Violetpaw to attack her sister. She is acting as a mouthpiece to Darktail and actively trying to keep Violetpaw as close to the kin as possible. She carries out the mentality of us versus them and is uncaring to Violetpaw's feelings. She gaslights Violetpaw into thinking that the kin are the only ones that care for her. To make matters worse, later on when Darktail is praising Violetpaw for being a credit to the kin, Needletail uses Violetpaw's feelings against her and tells Darktail to his face that Violetpaw is worried about a cat outside the kin. Violetpaw is shocked and wishes she didn't say that, thinking Darktail would question her loyalty. One could argue Needletail was simply stating this maybe in a comic way, which still isn't good because Violetpaw's emotions shouldn't be a joke to her or any other cat. Maybe she wanted to let Darktail know Violetpaw wasn't doing well, but even then that could bring down Violetpaw's value in the eyes of Darktail. In my point of view, I think this was Needletail trying to put down Violetpaw and push herself above Violetpaw in the eyes of Darktail. She wanted him to view her in a more positive light than Violetpaw. Luckily, Darktail only uses this as more reason to value Violetpaw for focusing on her loyalty to the kin rather than betraying them and taking off with the enemy. However, eventually Needletail starts to see the kin and Darktail in a negative light, but what kickstarts this makes me upset. She begins to turn on them because her boyfriend died. She starts caring as soon as literally the only cat she actually cares about betrays Darktail and dies because of it. She starts resenting Darktail because of it. A little off side note that I didn't script, I like the fact that she let Violet Paw go later on when she was trying to force her to join the kin because Rain said so. A few things happen, such as blood rituals, trapping kitty pets in their cult, and taking over RuruClan with extreme disrespect, that makes Violet Paw super uncomfortable, and she starts questioning if it was a bad idea to join the kin. She then says to herself, "No, I owe Needletail everything." Violet Paw thinks she owes herself to Needletail when Needletail has done nothing except for take her to visit her sister once when she was a kid. But that was long before Needletail had met the kin, and every time after that is Needletail separating Violet Paw from her sister. Needletail hasn't done a thing for Violet Paw, but because of the guilt-tripping and forcing Violet Paw to rely on her, and some unfortunate things that happened to Needletail that Violet Paw wasn't involved with at all, Violet Paw thinks she owes herself to Needletail. This is the mindset of an abuse victim who has no idea they're being abused. Their emotions and mindset have been toyed with by their abuser, and they've been convinced that their abuser was only helping them, even though that's far from the truth. I'm speaking as someone who has withstood abuse time and time again and knows what it's like to face that, and seeing it before me in a Warrior Cats book portrayed in a positive light is kind of not okay to me. It would be okay if they had Violet Paw realize later in life that Needletail was not good to her at all, but suddenly Needletail does one heroic act and she's a saint. However, before we get to that, we have more things to discuss. Alderheart notices that Violet Paw's brave and fierce act hides her sadness and fear that lays on the inside. He even notes that it must be hard for her to think for herself when she's always being told what to do and how to act and think by older cats around her. This includes Needletail. Of course, around this time, Needletail starts softening up and even schemes behind Darktail's back and gives away their herds to the clan cats, resulting in her being imprisoned. Needletail and Violet Paw's interactions fall short here, and the last interaction they have before the big scene is Needletail telling Violet Paw that she shouldn't blame herself for the mistakes they made. I like how Needletail says it plural, suggesting Violet Paw had any hand in this and is at fault in any level. And I will be fair and give Needletail credit here in defending Violet Paw. However, I won't let this boost her reputation up severely. She's doing something decent, not overly amazing. Their interactions end after the prison scenes for obvious reasons, and this gives us time to see into Violet Paw's mind. Violet Paw is dedicated to Needletail because she was the only cat she had growing up. Needletail treated Violet Paw with some kindness every now and then, but that shouldn't cover up the things she did literally in the book prior to this one. Like, she tricked and forced this child into a cult and then has the gall to suggest Violet Paw is even slightly responsible for any of that. Jesus Christ, not to mention the isolation from her family. Okay, let's finally discuss the big scene that led everyone to claim Needletail was a hero. Violet Paw gets caught sneaking out elders and trying to drug Darktail. She's about to get severely punished and Needletail is dragged along. Needletail is attacked and nearly drowned until Violet Paw admits to everything she did and begs them to let Needletail go. She emphasizes on how great Needletail is in her inner monologue. Then they decide to let Needletail kill Violet Paw instead. Violet Paw remarks on how she deserves this and welcomes her death. As soon as she's spared though, Violet Paw remarks on how great Needletail is and brings up two good things she did. I would like to now talk about this book's treatment of Needletail and Violet Paw's relationship. This book completely ignores the previous book and pretends Needletail only ever did good things for Violet Paw. Violet Paw also ignores everything Needletail did to hurt her. Now, for Violet Paw, this is her rationalizing everything Needletail did and forgetting everything bad she did. For the book, this is the author trying to romanticize an abusive relationship. They claim Needletail took care of and defended Violet Paw from the world and always treated her kindly. A good friend wouldn't force and manipulate their friend into a cult and then act aggressively when they think for themselves. Thank goodness Alderheart acknowledges the fact Needletail is mistreating her, though he does this indirectly by grouping her in with other cats around Violet Paw. Yes, she gave her life to save Violet Paw and it's good she appreciates it, but Needletail wasn't exactly consistent with her kind treatment of Violet Paw. Of course, there were rare moments of her acting kind, but overall, the fact she and Violet Paw were even in the kin speaks volumes of her treatment towards Violet Paw. Needletail's actions shouldn't just be excused and brushed off as soon as she does a grand gesture. My big problems with her character is how she is treated by everyone. Violet Paw, the fan base, the book itself. Warrior Cat's target audience is made up of children and they should not be taught that abuse is okay, and it should not be normalized for them. I went through something similar to Violet Paw, and I convinced myself that my abuser was great and that they did no wrong, and even placed the blame for their mistakes on me. I don't want other kids to read this book and allow themselves to get pushed around by older people because it was normalized for them. And Needletail makes up for this by saving Violet Paw's life and leading her to Tree. That shouldn't make up for it, but honestly, I find myself too tired to actually be mad. I would like to quickly break down all of Needletail's actions and classify types of abuse they can fall into. Needletail isolated Violet Paw from her friends and family by manipulating her against Twig Paw. We see her use verbal aggression against her as well as intimidating her and threatening her. Control is a huge one, with her forcing Violet Paw to go talk to Rain and forcing her to join the kin several times, and using guilt tripping for her final attempt that finally gets Violet Paw to cave once and for all. Insults and humiliation are a biggie too, and defamation of character occurred once. Not to mention, Needletail's actions led Violet Paw to an environment where others can and have also abused her. Needletail is not a friend. She is not to be excused from her actions. She is not to be idolized or framed as a girl boss. She abused a child for a majority of both their lives and got to go to heaven even after that. I find it horrible that Needletail's treatment of Violet Paw was normalized and ultimately brushed off by everyone, and I hope this video shines light on that topic. With that said, I do not think it's bad to like Needletail or her character. It's alright if you like her. All I wanted to do was just shed light on Needletail's actions because I see a lot of people frame her in a purely positive light. Of course, abuse is normalized a lot in Warrior Cats. This is disturbing because it's a kid's book, and I think it's important that we tackle it more often. This is where I will end this short rant. I will see you all soon. Goodbye!